Hey everybody, welcome to InterBrews. It's a very special day. We're at a brand new brewery on the show, but we'll get into that in just a second. That's called Building Anticipation. This is where I ask you if you love this show, which I assume you do since you're listening, and you love Houston craft beer and you want to support more of the audio that goes along with said Houston craft beer. Check out the InterBrews Patreon page. It's interbrews.com/Patreon or patreon.com/InterBrews, and you can help support this show that you're listening to right now for as little as $1 an episode. You can help Houston Craft Beer Audio live on for another however long it's been. Those are called details. Anyway, enough of that. Let's start the show.
The following is a presentation of Stewed Productions.
This is John.
This is Shane.
And I'm Sean, and you're listening to InterBrews.
This is InterBrews.
And my name's Josh. Kennedy's down at the end of the table. You didn't have to just say.
Hi, I'm Kennedy.
Yeah. And we're at New Magnolia Brewing. Guys, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the the world of Houston craft beer and the business of making beer and bringing smiles to people's faces and that feeling everybody gets when they take that first sip.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, that's so good. Y'all's Kolsch is really good.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, let's just talk about the Kolsch real quick because I just
Oh, wonderful.
So
yeah.
explain that flavor.
The flavor. I mean, it is something that we were fairly certain we wanted to do from the beginning there. So it's a really, really straightforward beer. You've got 100% German Pilsner malt, German Hallertau hops, Kolsch yeast from Köln, fermented fairly cool, and then lagered in the tank for quite a while after. So it's basically this hybrid style of lager and ale. That it's fermented a little warmer than lager would be with ale yeast, but follows this kind of same regimen of cold storing for quite a while. That really makes it a really crisp beer. We go with a fairly soft water profile too, which makes it just a really, really easy drinking, very enjoyable experience.
Super enjoyable. That's like the top of the line. It's super enjoyable. It's Kolsch for this area. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those beers that if you love beer,
Right.
it's like sometimes I'll let people try beer that aren't as into craft and be like, doesn't really taste like beer to me.
Yeah.
Well, if you're looking for a beer flavored beer.
Yep, this is definitely a beer flavored beer.
Yeah,
it's a yellow beer.
It is, but it's just so crispy and
Right.
good.
Yep, it's the best that yellow beer can be. You know, and there's obviously so much variety in craft beer, and you can go so many different places with it, with so many extreme flavors. But I feel like a lot of us always circle back to beer flavored beer. Whether it's circling back to it frequently or staying there. But you just need a beer like this every now and then.
Yeah, it's a comforting thing.
It is.
It's it's a congratulations on a hard day.
Yeah,
you burned it.
Yep.
Or you were kind of lazy today, but tomorrow's coming, so you know what? Get your mind right. Or whatever it is. It's a good. Ooh, that's a good beer.
And beers like this too, people would think because it is such a simple, straightforward beer that making it would be so simple and straightforward. But a lot of brewers will tell you that making a clean yellow beer like this is actually much harder than making like a really, really hop forward IPA or a stout or something like that. It takes a little bit more of a deft hand and a little bit more focus and discipline to make something like this.
And patience.
And patience.
It's
Patience is an important
naked,
thing.
as we like to say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
You're fully exposed.
Yeah.
We're nowhere to hide any faults or anything.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's it.
And it's worth mentioning, we didn't filter it.
Yeah,
No,
it's pretty bright, and it's just time clarified, which is kind of the best way to do it, in our opinion.
Yeah, well, you've got this system back there that we got to go look at, and Kennedy and I just kind of bright-eyed, just trying to. This is amazing, but you've got a 4-vessel system.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a 4-vessel brew house, which is a little unusual to what you'd see, particularly in a lot of breweries in the area. What you're mostly seeing is a 2-vessel system. Mm-hmm. And what we're talking about with the 2-vessel system is a combination mash lauter tun and a combination boil kettle and whirlpool vessel. So basically, our system has broken those apart, and we have 4 vessels to do all of these separate. So we have a mash mixer, we have a lauter tun, a boil kettle, and a whirlpool, all in their separate vessels. And this is a 15-barrel system that we have.
So when you're back there brewing, do you imagine yourself as like a beer DJ?
Yeah.
Mixing all that kind of stuff, and one of those huge drum sets from the 80s.
Right, yeah.
You can do
Rest in
whatever.
peace, Neil Peart.
Well, we do bang on vessels a couple of times. during the day.
Yeah, that's true. There is a little bit of drumming involved, I guess.
Well, let's talk about, that voice you heard, that was John. John, let's get around the table and how did everybody get to this point? We're sitting here in this awesome brewery with delicious beers in front of us, but what's the journey? How did we all get here? I mean, I drove, but before that.
You want to go back to the beginning? We can take it 18 years to the past.
Sure.
I mean, John's a chemical engineer, and I was dating his daughter, and it was the first Christmas at home that year in Mobile, Alabama. And I'm like, what do I give this chemical engineer, who I think is a nerd, for Christmas to slightly impress him? And they had just returned from living in Switzerland and had been exposed to a lot of great European beers. And I was just like, I heard that he made bread and gave that away during Christmas. I'm like, well, he's a maker, so let me get him something to make something on. And it just happened to be a DeFalco's homebrew kit.
Cool.
And that was 2002.
Okay.
John ran with it. I didn't really think he would, but he kind of like really dove into it head first and just found a passion for it.
Well, it's
and
fun.
Did it.
It's fun. Homebrewing was just a great deal of fun. And I was fortunate enough to find a home brew supply store in Mobile, Alabama that was owned and operated by another chemical engineer.
Oh, nice.
And so we got to be friends, and every time I would go in there, he'd say, "Hey, John, come over. I need you to try this. It's really great." And so we had a good time just doing home brews for those years.
That's
so
cool. That was back when. That was kind of the cusp. If you were into homebrewing, you homebrewed because there wasn't as much available. I'd imagine Mobile, similar to, I grew up in Arkansas. If you wanted to get something good, you had to make it yourself.
That was absolutely the thing for most people getting into homebrewing. Even just I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago, 7 years ago, the especially in Texas, the variety of beer that we were able to get was pretty narrow. And so like it was definitely a thing of like, I want to make the things that I can't try and I can't buy, you know? Yeah. And now, things have changed quite a bit from that. But,
Well, okay. So what was that first batch?
So then,
real quick, do you remember?
What was your first beer? It was a
my
dark
gosh.
one.
It was a dark beer. I want to say it was a box style.
Yeah.
But I think that was it. It was a box style beer. And I'd get up in the mornings on Saturdays to brew, and I usually got up very early. And I'd be through my brew day before my wife ever got out of bed. And when I would brew some of these beers, they would have a chocolate grain that I would need to roast. And she'd get up and she'd think I was making chocolate chip cookies or something.
Was she disappointed when she came in and there were no cookies?
Yes.
but soon there'll be beer.
Yes,
so.
but soon there was beer.
Maybe pop some cookies in that next batch.
Yeah.
Cover all your bases. But.
Well, the good news is John stuck with making beer, even in the absence of anybody kind of pushing him forward, right? So he found a true love and passion for it. And it wasn't until I moved back from New York, having been up there for a couple of years, then married to his daughter with some children in the mix, that we arrived in Houston, 2011. And if you looked around, the beer scene in Houston was very small. It just we didn't have a lot of major players. We didn't even have the depth of bench that we have today.
I'm trying to do that. Were you in Houston, then New York, and then back to Houston?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the DeFalco? I'm trying to. Okay, there.
Yeah, the boomerang effect, right? I went up. We were up in New York, but when you have 3 kids in New York City, you gotta throw in the towel eventually and go to where you can actually live. So we came home, and John and Charlotte had relocated to Houston, so it was an easy transition for us to come back.
Yeah.
I started asking John to make some beer for like Halloween party, birthday party, kids 1-year-old party, 2-year-old party, things of that nature. And people were like, "Hey, where are you getting this beer from?" I'm like, "Oh, my father-in-law made it." And they're like, "Can you make more for us? And can we buy it from you?" And we're like, "No, you can't buy it, but we'll make beer for you." And that just kind of kept going and going and going. And we really just started to pay attention to people's requests. And we went from the plastic bucket to the kettles, all grain, and then we went to a tippy dump, 1-barrel commercial pilot grade system. And then people were like, hey, here's money to put into a brewery. And we're like, wait a minute, maybe we're on to something.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. But when you looked around, I think really the precipice for the jump into it was the legislative change in 2014, which allowed for brew pubs. Because to be a distribution license back then was challenging, because you can't just walk into a bar or restaurant and say, hey, I'm the new guy on the street, buy my beer. But if you're a brew pub, you can build a following around you.
Yeah.
So we took that mentality and kind of pushed into 2014, 15 and beyond, but we started making beer and just giving it away to everybody and anybody that would take it. And we created a grassroots effort and following behind us. And I really confidently can say that I think 4,000 or 5,000 people had our beer before we even decided to become a brewery.
That's cool. I love the roads leading to, like, back in the, when you were in New York, I mean, I don't know, maybe you had a dream one night about owning a brewery or, something, but I mean, I don't know. It's just cool to look back. 2002. It all started with a homebrew kit from DeFalco's.
Yeah. And we didn't just like go from the bucket to the brewery. We took a lot of steps in between. John, we went from we did the tippy dump, and then we went to CBC 2 years in a row. John did a brewing arts program at the University of St. Pete, South Florida, where he was able to get with folks in a craft beer market that was coming into its own, but really has landed squarely on its own 2 feet. And he got to train with Chris Johnson and the owners of Three Daughters and Scar City guys.
That's cool.
He got to run through a litany of really staple breweries for the Tampa St. Pete scene. And then I spent a year at Buffalo Bayou working with those guys in a part-time basis. Yeah. So we kind of put the homework in and did the effort and, really tried to understand exactly what we were getting into. We just didn't take a leap of faith. We took a calculated leap of faith. Yeah,
I love it. But I don't know. Okay, so the brewery lineage, what breweries in Florida were you connected to with training or whatever?
Well, Shayn mentioned most of them.
Three Daughters.
Three Daughters. Green Bench is the one that's run by Chris Johnson, and he does a fabulous job there on his mixed fermentations and sours, and he's just a fabulously creative guy. And I think that was one of the things that I got from him, was just this sense of the creativity that's needed to create unique beers.
Yes. Yeah, we had a lot of support from 2 of my closest friends who actually started a brewery 5 years ago, John and Matt. They're in Trinity, Florida. They own Escape Brewing in Trinity, Florida. They have the #1 IPA in the state of Florida, the other West Coast. So I'm giving them a shout out. That's cool. Because these guys to this day are always at the end of a phone call whenever I have a question.
That's
without
cool.
question.
Yeah.
So that community that was kind of wrapping themselves around us as we were going into this was true to form with the whole craft community as it sits today.
Cool. And then Shayn, your brewery lineage as well is Jester King as well.
Yeah, really, I got my start at DeFalco's, like a lot of people, but I worked there as a sales associate for a couple of years, and then for a short time at Buffalo Bayou, and for a short time at Eighth Wonder, and then the last 4 years I was a brewer at Jester King Brewery. Yeah, I left there as the senior brewer. Yeah,
that's great. I love the just the brewing tree, or however you know. It definitely is family and the creativity and styles, and say, I don't know, like drinking a beer and say, maybe I think I can see a little bit of influence there or whatever. I don't know. That's cool.
I get a lot of people come in and they're like, when are you going to do sours? Shawn's here. And I'm like, patience. We're working on that plus a lot of other stuff.
Well, you beat me to the point. When are you going to do sours? That was my next on the list. I have.
Yeah. There's the barrel aging program is in place, or the plan for it is in place, and we're going to get that started here pretty soon. And those beers. they take time to make, right? It's not an overnight sort of satisfaction kind of thing. Like we can make those types of sour beers. We've got 3 Berliner Weisses on right now that didn't take 12 months in an oak barrel to make. But we're going to get started on those things. We plan to keep our barrel aging program pretty small and pretty concise. But yeah, those things are in our future.
So with the Berliners, which hopefully we'll get to try in just a sec, but what's the process? Is that kettle sour?
It's a kettle soured beer. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Did it in the pretty standard way, pitching lacto in the kettle, keeping it warm, monitoring it, watching the pH drop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I love Berliners. They're great for humid Houston.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's one of the most underappreciated, undermade beers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And a buddy of mine, John and Matt over at Escape, they said, like, once you've passed the IPA space, like sours is where you land next.
Yeah.
And I really have kind of grown into that mentality myself.
Oh yeah, yeah. In Florida too, they're kind of known for their fruited Berliner Weisses. It's a style, Florida Weiss.
Hidden Springs.
Yeah,
does
so
one of
many,
the
so
top
many out
ones
there. So many. And I know Greenbench is doing them, and I know Jay Wakefield. But it's kind of a thing. Again, Florida, hot weather environment.
Yeah.
It's a low ABV beer. It's something that's not 6 to 8. Ours are 3.5% with really thirst quenching qualities to it. So it just kind of makes sense for the weather.
Yeah, those the Berliners goes as that sort of thing. The low ABV, the tart cuts through that humid Houston face.
Always.
Yeah. Florida, good. Yeah, it's good to look at Florida from here because Florida, they get all the publicity for their citrus and stuff, but we got citrus.
Oh my God, the citrus that comes out of the Texas Valley is some of the best in the country. We've got some subtropical climate down there, and there's some really, really great citrus that comes from Texas.
Yeah, I have a blood orange tree in my backyard.
Yeah, there you go.
It gets like 6. So if y'all need like 6 blood oranges,
it's one of our small batches.
let me
We'll call
know.
you up.
Yeah, extra small batch. Let me know.
Yeah,
maybe I can wrestle some away from my daughters. Those things are great.
That's awesome.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
local sourced.
Yes, right out my backyard.
Yeah.
Sometimes watered by my dog. It's like, dude,
Little extra
whatever.
pH.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. This one's extra tart. Weird. Anyway, I wish. Now Kennedy's down there with a camera, and you'll get to see a little bit of this conversation when I post it eventually. The goal is to eventually make this a video side as well with like multi cameras and stuff, but that's a whole other thing. But I wish I had a camera video, and so I could cut to it right now of the slow pour on your Pilsner. That's a thing of beauty. And I talk about the tap wall and the precision of your taps and the dials.
So, did you take video of that slow pour?
I did. I've got some that I'll post.
I can edit it and post.
Are you going to do that?
Yeah.
I'll just post it to Instagram.
So right now, as we're speaking about it, everyone is watching a slow pour.
Oh,
right now.
Look at that! Isn't that beautiful?
Pour. Look at that!
Oh
head.
wow,
that is fantastic. But no, it's very. You didn't just slap some taps on a wall and drill some holes and kegs on the other side. Woo! But that's good sometimes. But you guys dialed it in, thought about it, put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, we did. I had thought about doing that whole process myself, and then I started talking to some people, and Mark Nichols walked in one day, and he kind of explained everything to me, and I said, well, maybe not. I'm not the best guy to do this. Yeah. And it kind of opened my eyes up to the fact that, when you want something done to the highest quality, you bring in the best people. Mm-hmm. And that's like why we have Shayn, and why we brought Mark in to do the tap wall. And so that was an area where we're like, let's do it right, because that's the impression that people walk away with is the quality of the beer. Mm. And so, we've spent a lot of time putting together a carbonation system that's powered by nitro and CO2, and we've got 26 taps on the wall. We've got 2 nitro pours and 3 slow pour handles. Mm. The other slots are filled for our beer. So our goal is 20 beers, year round, but part of that process is not every beer deserves the same amount of CO2.
Yeah.
Right. And so we pay special attention to that so that we can get the head pressure right on the beer, mm-hmm. and that the pour is right. and that the carbonation and the mouthfeel is correct too. So it's every little attention to the detail has been thought through with each of the beers separately, not just as a one fit kind of scenario across all beers.
Yeah, it's like it's like if you're like real big into listening to records and stuff, you want to dial in like certain songs and certain albums, more bass, less bass. You don't always want to just crank the bass every time.
Right.
You want to dial in so you really hear all that nuance. And it's the same thing with a pour. You put all that work into brewing the beer and sourcing the best ingredients and then fermentation and all that, and then that final presentation, that finish line.
Yep.
To wait for it, it was awesome just to watch the foam and everything. It's like it just builds. It's awesome.
Yeah, the slow pour is not a lot of breweries are doing it around Houston, and it takes time, but it's worth it. I mean, I always tell people like, "Hey, you're gonna have that Pilsner, you want it on a slow pour?" And they look at me like quizzically, like, "What do you mean slow pour?" I'm like, "Let me show you." And then they walk away and they're like holding it in the air, like, "Yeah, man, that's awesome. We love that. That's awesome. Thank you." And then they come back in and their friends are like, "Hey, I want a slow pour." And so it's just more word of mouth, grassroots.
If you were gonna add anything, if I were just from a bystander, just looking at it, maybe like a speaker to play some slow saxophone music as it comes out, just something. That would be just if you're gonna add anything.
One more element of sensory perception in there.
Maybe a little vibrator in the seat. I thought, I can't wait. I don't know. Maybe that's going too far, or maybe it's not far enough. Maybe
another weekend project.
Yeah, it's like, how do you hook these chairs up? Speaking of weekend projects in the tap room, you got an awesome tap room here. Just places to hang out with friends and family. It's family oriented. You got the kids play at I saw the Connect 4 out there. I was like, I wanted to challenge Kennedy. But we'll see what happens after the show.
You'd lose.
How's your Connect 4 game?
It's good.
Is it?
Yeah.
What color do you like to be?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Just saying, some people prefer a certain color. Just
I don't see color, Josh.
Actually, that's what I was saying. I have a friend that's colorblind, and he's like, "You want to be black or red?" And he's like, "I don't. Where are the reds? Like the gray ones." Oh, okay, fine. But anyway, that's a whole nother show. Not a whole nother show. That's it. That's that whole story. There's no more to that. But super inviting, roomy, tall ceilings. Something about tall ceilings that are nice. Give your head retention.
Yeah. The space has a story too. I mean, that's the beauty of kind of everything that we're involved with the brewery. The name of the brewery, the space itself, John's story, Shayn's story. Kind of where we're at. It's all story based. I mean, and when we were going into this, everybody was like, "You got to have a great story. Like you can't just make great beer. You got to have a great story behind it." And believe it or not, we didn't like try to cram the stories together. They just naturally and organically came out of what we were doing.
Yeah. Well, then start with the name, New Magnolia.
Yeah, New Magnolia. So here's the elevator version of it. 1893, a guy named Hugh Hamilton comes to Houston. He starts Houston Ice Manufacturing Company. He then perfects ice manufacturing year-round so that he can then lager beer year-round. He then decides, I'm going to start a brewery. So he starts Magnolia Brewing Company, which used to sit downtown on Texas Avenue right at Buffalo Bayou. Mm-hmm. They go on to brew massive amounts of beer. At some point, they're brewing 200,000+ barrels a year, okay, in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. 1912, they win grand prize at the International Beer competition. It was the last year of the competition. It was a European competition. Out of like 4,000 entrants that year, they win number one beer. Okay, Prohibition comes along. They go from beer to dairy. Mm-hmm. Prohibition ends. They fire up the beer machine again. The flood of 1935 comes through Houston, wipes out the brewery. I mean, the only thing that is left is the original corporate office, or the C-suite, which is the Magnolia Ballroom today downtown. Yeah. And it's a historic landmark designated building restored by Bart Charksilla, who has since passed. So when we really thought about who we wanted to be and what we wanted to represent, it being Houston based, we said, New Magnolia. Looked into it. Name reservation was gone. 1974, that was the last time they filed the trademark update. And so it was available, and so we picked it up. And that's how we got to the name.
That's cool.
So we wanted it to be about Houston, deep, historical, untold story, because here we are. The reason why Anheuser-Busch left St. Louis, or Adolphus Busch left St. Louis, was because he set up his second location in North America in Houston. Because Houston was built by Eastern Europeans. And with the ship channel and all the railroad and all the growth and progress here locally, we had a huge European influence in Houston, which isn't very often talked about. And when you look around, it's everywhere. You've got these Czech clubs, these Polish clubs, German towns, all this influence that still exists today, and they hold on to their heritage deeply. But it's dwindling because of outside influences and organic internal growth. And so we latched onto that and really realized that it was a story that needed to be retold, and we needed to bring it back. And so we started with the name, styles of beer as well. It's pretty evident by this, the wall that we're doing, and all the different beers that we're brewing, which have a lot of European influence. And so, we're really trying to retell the story of the past of what Houston had from back in its early days.
Yeah, that's like chapters 1 through 3 of Ronnie's book.
It's not right, yeah.
He touches on all that, and it's like Southern Select, wasn't that the beer?
Yeah. Yes, that was it.
That's, you don't even, most people would never even think about the history of Houston, and even in Galveston there's the big Galveston brewery and everything.
Yeah,
it's still there. The building's still there, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
and just this awesome history that, and the fact that it's disappearing, that a lot of the heritage, that's a very Houston thing too. It's like we don't keep things around, The Astrodome's our oldest thing, and it was built, 10 years ago.
And they would have tore down if they could, I'm
Yeah.
sure, because that is absolutely a thing.
It's just too big to tear down. We don't know what we do with all that stuff.
I think it's also important to recognize and mention the name of the brewmaster that was at the original Magnolia Brewery, and that was Franz Brognier, a Belgian brewer who had a history of brewing in his family. His father had been a brewer. He was a brewer. He and his wife came to Houston, and they actually were quite well-known, well-liked, and philanthropic in their approach to becoming Houston citizens. He actually worked with I'm a Hog in helping to establish the Houston Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, cool.
That's incredible.
That is super cool. And that's Houston pre-air conditioning.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother level.
but to add to that little tidbit, because of the work that Hugh Hamilton did perfecting ice manufacturing, we have modern AC today. So everybody can thank us for that.
Right. Yeah.
Not us, but Hugh.
Yes. That's... Yeah, and I've always been baffled when I look at some of that history or whatever. Like, how did Houston become a place before, 1945, when air conditioning was pretty good?
Right.
From then, I could see it should have been like 4 people just doing this all day.
Yeah.
But it's this huge city in a swamp that became this thing.
1853, Chicago and Houston incorporate their cities almost within weeks of each other. Chicago grew vertically, Houston grew horizontally, and we were agricultural. They were trade and commerce.
Okay, yeah, no, it's a very different vibe. Chicago, very different vibe, but it's actually 2 cities with like awesome histories, though.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
Houston always gets paralleled to Chicago, and now that we're going to be bigger than Chicago, even more so.
And better. People are leaving Chicago to come to Houston.
Well, it's interesting. Since we've been open for 11 weeks, and I keep meeting people every week that are new to the neighborhood, and I'm like, "Where are you from?" California, New York, Florida. A lot of out of state people moving into Houston, but they're more specifically coming to the Heights because the research they've done is, this is a walkable community, pet friendly, very outdoorsy, tons of food and restaurants and bars and nightlife, and it just has a good vibe and a good feel. And I feel like right now the Heights is one of those up and coming neighborhoods, even more so than it has been the past few years. And it's got a lot of outside influence, and they're bringing all these tastes with them from different parts of the country, which is kind of driving the food and beverage market.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You need, as much as we make fun of outsiders, you need outsiders coming in with new ideas. Like the fact that, like I've never, being a Houstonian and you drive everywhere. You think mass transit, who would want to do that? I'll get in my car and I'll drive. But then I was in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, and it's like, oh, this is what this could be? You mean you could just get on this thing and it goes where people go, and you get off and then you're at that place? And you don't have to worry about your car. You just
with no traffic, you get on the train and it drops you exactly the time it's supposed to.
You may be next to somebody that, is dancing a little bit to the music in their head, and that. But other than that, it's a super quick trip, and it's just super efficient, and like, oh, this is what this could be. It's like, I don't know, would this work in Houston? I don't know. We're kind of our thing. We're kind of, like you said, we're horizontal.
Yeah.
Pretty proud of it. But
very spread out.
Yeah, I don't know. The other ideas, let's look at them. Different styles of beer, restaurants, food. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, though, you guys aren't, the Heights. So is this is the Heights? Are we in the Heights? There's different sections of Heights,
There
right?
is, yeah.
Yeah, this is called the Shady Acres.
Shady Acres,
Okay.
yeah.
Portion of the Heights.
Okay.
Yeah. So west of Shepherd and Durham, in between TC Jester. This is like the Shady Acres, and then if you go north a little bit, it's kind of like the Sunset Heights area.
Okay. Kennedy, what are you technically Heights?
No, I'm Garden Oaks.
Okay.
That's just north, right?
Yeah. I'm like less than a mile and a half away from here.
Do you? Okay.
I didn't actually leave my place until you told me you were going to be here.
See, that's nice.
You said I'm going to be here at 11:45 or 9:45. So I left at 9:45.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. No, it was a 30-minute drive for me. Everything's a 30-minute drive.
I
for
could
me.
have walked here in less than 30 minutes.
Really? No, you could have, or one could have.
Believe me, I could have.
I've seen you walk. Your pace, not.
Look, you may not realize this, but I'm a model of fitness. You don't.
No.
You don't realize.
I don't realize that. But yeah, all right. Well, there you go. Slow and steady wins the race, I guess. Is that what you're saying? I don't.
Something like that. Sure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. All right. Normally, you don't hear that voice on this podcast. That's Kennedy. Liquid Lunch Thursdays. That's a plug, real quick. We do that live. So anytime you have something coming up, let us know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we'll plug it. Who we got coming up? Well, we had a Dave from Southern Star last week. This week we have who?
This week we have. I'm going to mess up this name really bad.
That's cool.
Tusculum.
Mm-hmm.
Tusculum Brewing in Bernie, Texas.
Bernie. Cool.
They're brand new. They're only a few months old.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's good to see more breweries in Bernie. I've got a friend who owns a brewery in Bernie, Cibolo Creek.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I love Houston. I love getting to come sit down with you guys and everybody else and doing like roundtables and stuff. And it's so, because that's my home. But Texas has got so much going on in the beer scene and all these little places where, everybody just thinks, high school football on Fridays. Well, yeah, those places now have like local breweries and this awesome community. And it's like, awesome stories and everything too. So that's what we're trying to do with Liquid Line, just get a little bit of that for everybody to hear.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, all right. You know what?
Beer?
Probably need
you got an empty glass? You got an empty glass?
Yeah, we can pause it. That's the beautiful thing about a podcast. We'll just pause it, and magically we'll have beers like in 2 seconds. Nobody will even know. See, nobody even knew right there. And now we have new beers in front of us. Berliner's Cherry Tropical Citrus. We'll start with cherry.
Yep. So all of these 3 beers was one brew, a 15-barrel batch of kettle-soured Berliner Weiss. Very traditional, even split of wheat and Pilsner malt, hopped very lightly, kettle-soured for, it was just a couple days there, I think, in the kettle.
Yeah, it was a little over 48 hours.
That's right. And then knocked out 3 separate tanks. We pitched German ale yeast, fermented, fairly traditionally, and then added fruit near the end of fermentation for all 3 of these. So the cherry is, and they're all about a pound per barrel of fruit, a fruit puree in all of these. So a fairly potent dose of fruit, but not overwhelmingly so. So the cherry was a pound per barrel tart cherry puree added
cherries
at the end of fermentation. So it is actually fermented out with the beer, which more and more often it's been a thing for breweries to add fruit to these beers. At packaging, basically back sweetening the beer, adding fruit juice like quality to the beer. The fruit in these beers are actually fermented with the beer. So that's actually adding a little bit more acidity too, as we talk about some of these other fruits. So the beer here in the center is the Tropical Splits. Tropical Splits got passion fruit and pink guava puree, again at a rate of about a pound per barrel. Now these fruits have more acidity to them naturally, so they're actually bringing the total acidity level, the pH or the titratable acidity down. Right, yeah. So you get a little bit more of that pucker factor, and that's just coming from the fruit itself adding that level of acidity. So we went for kind of a tropical fruit profile. Passion fruit and pink guava, very kind of like stinky, potent fruits that blend really, really well with this type of like, low gravity sour wheat beer. Those are, I think personally I like the tropical the most. It's a very like interesting fruit profile. Yeah. It's not, we're not saying like these are like an incredibly rare kind of like type of beer or fruits that, you're seeing passion fruit and guava in a lot more beers now. But it's a nice kind of flavor profile that is still like pretty unique and new to a lot of people, especially when we're talking about beer. So the Tropical's really fun. And then the last one there, and we're kind of going 1, 2, 3 in the level of acidity. Now these beers were kettle soured as one batch, so the acidity going to the tank was locked in and was the same type of was the same level of acid in this beer, of tartness. The only thing to modify it going forward is the fruit. So the cherry being the least sour, the tropicals being the kind of middle ground, and then now you work your way up to the citrus splits, which got again a pound per barrel of fruit puree added, key lime and blood orange.
Yeah, there's almost like they're dry.
Oh, yeah.
There's no sweetness. It's all fruit flavor, but it's not sweet. It's like super refreshing.
Right, and that is something that is very important to us, I think, is it's not this fruit juice beer that is called like a fruited sour. It is a fermented, the fruit is fermented with the beer. It is dry. It is sour. Any kind of sweetness in this would kind of detract from the style, I think. Berliner Weiss is said to be, real traditional Berliner Weiss, which, we're not claiming this to be. It is a kettle soured beer. This is an American Berliner Weiss. But real Berliner Weiss should be dry. It should be refreshing. It should be champagne-esque. It should be on the higher carbonation side. There shouldn't be any kind of sweetness there to detract from the drinking experience.
I want this with like fajitas or street tacos.
Heck
or something.
Yeah, dude! I bet you can marinate some stuff in it. It's got the acidity level. It'll probably break down some. But
it's almost almost
meat.
like a high shelf, top shelf margarita type nose.
Yeah.
Just
we
like
hear that a lot.
Cocktail. It's good.
That lime is potent.
Yeah.
People ask me like, "Hey, do you have a little salt rim thing I can do with that?" And I'm like, "No, but a good idea for next time."
Right, that beer would be really, really interesting for michelada. We haven't done that yet.
Yeah,
but like, and you don't see people using sour beer for michelada. There's already acidity in like tomatoes and all that stuff that goes into that. But the lime aspect with the mix would be
you could
a fun thing.
I don't know, a little spice to it, or just like a habanero in there. Take it out
I'm guilty of doing this too, and it's embarrassing. But a little bit of tahini in a beer, tahini. It's just like that. It basically what would you would rim a glass of michelada with. It's like a spiced, salty thing that's amazing. You just put a little bit in that's exactly what we're talking about. A little bit of spice.
Yeah.
What's fun when people come in and they're like, "Oh, tell me a little bit about each one." I'm like, "Well, listen, the cherry is kind of like sour from start to finish, but it's really mellow. The citrus, it gets you in the back of the mouth as far as the pucker, and then the tropical is like right up front." I said, so you have 3 different like levels that are hitting you at 3 different points in your mouth. I'm like, so you got to get all 3 of them.
Yeah.
You got to experience them all. Yeah. And so we plan to do these splits again. They're just about gone. They're just about almost gone, but we're going to do them again. We're going to do some new combinations, and we plan to continue to have like these sorts of beers on and have different options for these sorts of beers.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, which one of these 3 sells the best?
They've been pretty evenly going.
Yeah.
The cherry is the one that people were coming in the first 2 weeks saying, hey, I saw this on one of the blogs or like my friends or whatever social media communication channel, and this beer is like blowing up all over the place. I was like, really? Okay. And they're like, oh, and then we want the Grudzinski. I was like, well, we're out of that because that went really fast. All the industry people drank that one up. But the cherry is probably the one that got the most attention out the gate. Mm-hmm. But then the other two sell equally as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a very even distribution of sales on those.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were picking up the mic. Which one? Is that the cherry? Yeah. They're all real.
They're all it's hard to pick which one I like the best because they're all like different.
Yeah, they're unique and
they're all definitely unique and
have their own thing.
Yeah, that's what I don't think like a lot of people really appreciate is it's the same base beer,
right?
But we made them really all different.
I would have never
these adjuncts.
Yeah,
and that to me like that is what is impressive about what Shayn did with these beers and John.
Well, if you'd placed these in front of me and said, these are wildly different. Yeah. I would have never said, they all started from the same exact spot.
Right.
It was just the fruit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brewing's awesome.
Yeah.
There's so many levels where you can, that's why home brewers can never just leave something alone. It's always we got to tweak something, mess with something, but it's whether it's yeast or just a little bit of different grains here, different hop or whatever. Add a different fruit, and it completely changes the whole dynamic of a beer.
Yeah, and you can constantly keep modifying things, too. I find myself, like, when I'm building a recipe, I'll start somewhere and then think of something, modify it, think of something the next day. It's basically modifying it, ideally bettering it, for the better, changing things up until the last minute that you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're like a jazz musician with that, with beer.
And at 3.5% each, you're not going to get hammered with these, and then you can still work your way through the other 17 plus beers.
Yeah, I think the acidity kind of slows you down anyway. I mean,
right?
I could probably chug it because if I could set my mind to it, I'm not gonna. I want to sit here and enjoy it.
Right?
But it's one of the like quenching kind of deal, almost like a. Well, yeah, it's like citrusy, like a lemonade, but without the sugar. It's like an adult lemonade kind of citrus. It's good. I like them. I love the smell of the cherry.
Yeah,
I like the color.
Well, I really like sour beers. In fact, there's a story that my son-in-law and my son will tell you sometime about going up to GABF, and I would search out all of the sour beer spots, and I'd drink anything sour. And when we first did our first pilot on this, I had it soured up pretty well. But as Shayn and I started talking about how we wanted to adjust the recipe, how we wanted to dial this in, everybody was saying, John, we're not going to make it as sour as you want it. We're going to make it as sour as people will drink. So,
yeah. John gravitates to, I always tease him, I'm like, it's just your taste buds dying from age. So you need something with a lot of punch in there. Because he would go to the stuff at GABF and he's like, this is great. And me and Jonathan are like, no, we can't. That's too much.
Our kegs won't even hold that.
Yeah, no, it'll eat through the keg in a heartbeat.
Through the stainless. Yeah, well,
titanium or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you even get that to a place? How can your body hold that?
Right? Cast iron stomach.
Yeah. You know what? I get it though. Every once in a while, it's the same thing with like super aggressively hopped beers. Every once in a while, I just want something that like slaps my mouth, the inside of my mouth. I'm like, what did you just drink? I don't know. Give me a little more of that. But like, just like,
wake your palate up.
Yeah, it just grabs you and says, you're alive.
That's funny.
More now. I don't know. I hear you, John. That's,
yeah, it's fun to have those experiences of having something that's so intensely flavored that it like wakes you up like that.
Yeah.
And it's cool that beer is even able to do that. That it could be something like as simple as Kolsch, but also be like have such intense flavors and I mean, for a lot of us, those like intensely flavored beers are something that you definitely want to try and you want to experience and enjoy, but in small amounts, right?
We have pastry stouts are a thing,
right?
Yep. NEPAs and all their variations are in milkshakes.
There you go.
IPAs. It's like I don't need. they just are what they are. But it's like it's crazy that that's a thing. Yeah, like
it's I think about this a lot. I feel like I talk about it a lot too. And all I can really kind of sum it down to these trends, these very recent trends in craft beer, pastry stout, milkshake IPAs, hazy IPA even, is that they are very incredibly approachable beers, but they're all kind of, it's like a nostalgia based thing. So it's flavors that like you're accustomed to, that you're used to, that are warm and comforting. We're talking about milkshakes. We're talking about the baked goods your grandmother made and the bowl of cereal your mom poured you in the morning every day for breakfast, and like those types of things ending up in beer, and people being drawn to that as as like something that is like I don't know, reaching for something from the past maybe a little bit. And then at the same time, those beers for brewers are incredibly fun to make. That being said, we don't really have much of an interest in those types of beers. While those beers are incredibly fun to make and fun to drink, like we're a little bit more focused on, I think and we get asked this question a lot, like what kind of beer are you guys making, or what's your focus in beer? And the only real answer I can have to that question is we're brewing classic styles. We're brewing, we want to brew really great, straightforward classic styles. We're also talking about these 3-fruited Berliner Weisses, which you can't say it's like really even a recent trend. That these types of beers have been around for about a decade now. People have been doing these types of things. It's not not some kind of like fleeting thing. Not to say that pastry stout or milkshake IPA, obviously hazy IPA has become such an incredible thing. I never thought it would be the gateway beer for so many people that are new to craft beer. It's because of hazy IPA. Low bitterness level, high hop flavor, high fruit and citrus flavors and aromas that are incredibly seductive and attractive. And that's kind of been the gateway kind of beer for a lot of people, which is interesting.
You bring up the nostalgia part of that, and so like I know like the breakfast cereals that I had when I was a kid, like Lucky Charms and things like that. But I also see like my kids, like we were a little more health conscious with them early on. It's like, no, they can't have Lucky Charms. They need the multi-grain healthy cereal and blah 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 and kale. Like are brewers 15 years from now going to be nostalgic about like kale chips and put those in like a kale chip goza or something? I mean, what is nostalgia going to be?
I'd try it.
It's like, I'm scared of the future now.
Well, maybe it could be this kind of separate level of nostalgia, the yearning for a time they've never experienced, like people my age, like being obsessed with mid-century modern 50s stuff, like
nostalgia
was there to,
nostalgic for the things I saw other people being nostalgic
or that feeling of like I was born in the wrong era. I want to go back to where pastry stouts were a thing 20 years from now, something like that.
Remember when they were brewing pastry stouts? Oh man,
I don't think it's going to go away either.
I don't either.
No, it's a thing that's a part of beer. And it's crazy to now it's got a name, the style of pastry stout, but it's something that's been made. People have been making flavored stouts for it's got to be a couple decades now. People have been adding things to stouts. Now it's just got a name, and it's taken on this kind of like movement. Almost.
Well, it started with like the pumpkin spice stuff.
Right. Yeah. Think about, St. Arnold Pumpkinator was one of the first beers in Houston that had this like incredible cult following where people were lining up at places to buy it and driving all over town trying to find it. Like that was one of the first beers, to my knowledge, that had that cult following where people were like really, really anticipating it every year and trying to find it, back in 2011, 2012, around there. It was just like the biggest, hottest thing. And now, a pumpkin spice beer is nothing crazy. People are doing all sorts of crazy stuff to beer.
It gets an eye roll.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't. That's a fantastic beer.
Yeah. It's one of those victims of marketing kind of thing. Some of the big guys take it, and Starbucks and everybody else. There's they have pumpkin spice Cheerios.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
When's somebody going to make that beer with the Cheerios?
We'll start a whole new style, breakfast beers.
Yeah,
cereal beer.
It's a thing,
Breakfast
and
cereal.
you see them and part of me is like, oh wow, that's kind of ridiculous. But the other half of me is seeing it and was like, wow, I bet that was really fun to make and really interesting to taste.
Well, the fact that we live in a time when you can order off of Amazon a 50-pound bag of Lucky Charm marshmallows.
Just the marshmallows.
You can climb inside a big bag of marshmallows and just spend your whole Saturday morning.
Incredible.
You can do that.
Just the marshmallows.
Do you not have Amazon Prime?
I do, but I didn't know I could order 50 pounds of just
marshmallows.
Just marshmallows.
And they'll deliver it by drone.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Drop it on your front
your lap,
porch.
next to you on the couch.
One of my other favorite weird things like that is you can buy a giant bag of only pink Starburst.
Oh, wow.
It's the best flavor.
Is it?
I think so.
It absolutely is the best flavor of Starburst.
All right.
Yeah.
I gravitate more towards
like
red flavor.
Years ago, they used to
Red flavor.
Yeah.
The flavor of red.
Yeah.
They used to sell just the pink Starburst, the strawberry.
They still
Yeah.
do.
They do?
On
They sell
Amazon.
packs of just strawberry?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, on Amazon.
Just like
No, I mean, I know
you could buy your weight in strawberry
you can go to the
Starburst.
convenience store and there's the pack of
Only pink?
Starburst.
There's nothing more
They used
convenient
to
than
have
Amazon.
only pink.
Amazon is the convenience store now.
I know.
It's strawberry must be the most like transportable artificial flavor you can make.
Yeah.
Because I had some strawberry ice cream at Monster Jam the other night, and I know it was artificial, but I was like, damn, it was good.
Monster Jam.
Monster Jam. That's awesome.
There needs to be a Monster Jam. Ooh, that's a good name for with jam.
There you go, a beer,
Some sort of
strawberry flavored beer.
I want to make a Gravedigger beer. That would be. Is Gravedigger still?
yeah.
He won. He won the show.
Great.
Gravedigger won.
Yeah.
I didn't see Bigfoot out there anymore.
Let's
That
get
was
that
my
Gravedigger
Monster
collab.
Jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bigfoot.
Bigfoot was the guy.
That was
back in
who
the
we
day.
probably all grew up with.
I had that I remember being second, third grade and having like a Gravedigger shirt, and I really wish I still had that shirt.
I don't think it fit, but
Oh, no. It doesn't matter. I
It's a
just want it.
medium.
Yeah, I
Extra.
frame it. I don't care.
you've been working out. Yeah, man.
No, it still fits.
You look swollen.
Swollen. Yeah.
It's a schmedium.
Yeah. You know what? Okay, thought. I've brought this up before on the show, but okay. As far as distribution, what are y'all's plans, distribution wise? So do you sign with a distributor? Do you self distribute? Do you?
Yeah, so we're licensed to self distribute up to the limit. We have a plan. We're accelerating the plan because of current demand in the marketplace. A lot of bar restaurant owners coming in through every week asking when we're going to get it going. So we're in the process of taking those steps, and so we hope to be out in distribution this summer.
I play fantasy bar owner. I don't do fantasy football. I do fantasy. I would try to get one of these kegs when I'm at a place.
Do you make like draft up a tap list?
A draft.
Yeah.
I do a draft.
A draft. That's good.
How many taps does your virtual bar have?
I think about 25.
25?
25.
That's a good number.
Yeah, definitely want like a log, some sort of crispy lager that's always there.
Gotta have.
Yeah, of course, IPA. I don't know. It's a whole thing.
Well, you're at the right spot because we're lager and beer all year round.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
lager is important.
Yeah, I always want Pilsner, some crispy Pilsner.
Yep.
And figure out all the other stuff as we go. But
That's the thing that I find myself reaching for more than anything as a beer drinker, having cycled through all of the extreme styles and drinking like all sorts of crazy beer, but just like a well-made Pilsner. I think a lot of people end up in that place too. Where
I want to make sure I have a Pilsner and like an ESB.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got one in the tank right now just for you. And it's, we're really excited about it.
We sold out of that the first weekend we were open.
Houston quietly becoming one of the best ESB places that I know of.
Yeah.
Other than, say, England. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe better than England. I mean, Holler and Eureka, and I want to try your guy, you guys. And
yeah.
Yeah, I love ESBs. It's like,
Me too.
It's like actual, like, if beer's liquid bread, it's like.
Right. What do you like the most about ESPs?
It's just, it's like on a day like today when it's overcast,
Yeah.
it's like,
it's
like a sweater
Right.
in your glass.
Inside.
Yeah.
One of my favorite beer drinking experiences or memories is I was at in Philadelphia for CBC and went to as while I was working at Jester King. We did a collaboration brew with Forest in Maine. They're right outside of Philly, in Ambler, Pennsylvania. But they do they kind of have a focus. It's British cask ale, real ale on the beer engine, and then they're also doing mixed culture stuff on the side, and some IPAs and stuff sprinkled in as well. But it was a day not unlike today, very gray, rainy, cold, and just drinking cask bitter and mild on a day that feels like you're in London. And we went around the corner and got some Indian food to accelerate that feeling even further. But yeah, it's nice that what a great thing to have like a beer for a day or a feeling or a vibe or like to be able to fit.
Well, and it's so good you can forget you're drinking it.
Right.
Like you're just sitting there and having conversation and enjoying your food and just and then you're like, oh, I've had 3 of these. Like, this is some of the best beer I've ever had, and you don't even realize it until.
Oh, that's another one of my most favorite things about beer is like a really well made beer is something that you could sit down and analyze and enjoy, and really, really think about. But also, it should have this duality where you could sit down with it, not think about it at all. It disappears. It's part of what's going on, your social interactions or whatever you're working on, mowing the lawn or whatever. Yes. It's a delicious beer that you could think about, and analyze, and appreciate, or not at all, and just consume like in the background as part of your day. Like a beer that can do both of those things is a well-made beer.
Rain's coming down.
Yeah, it is now.
It's hitting our tin roof pretty hard.
It's heard us talking about ESBs.
We've got a mild on. We should try the mild too.
It's just one like you have like with a sandwich and chips or something.
Right.
I don't know. It goes with so many things, and it's a comfort beer.
Yeah. We're really excited about our ESB, which we just brewed last week, sent to the tank. It was hopped at over £1 per barrel with some really nice UK Fuggle hops that were incredibly low alpha and had like a really, really intense green tea aroma, which is like one of my favorite thing about English hops. Its aroma right now is incredibly English.
And we named it after a British guy.
Right, yeah.
Carl Eaves, who did our construction work here, he's a Brit, proper Brit, and we call it Eaves into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Speak with all the variety you have. How many different strains of yeast are y'all working with?
It's for some of the specialty beers, particularly the 1 barrel batches of beer. So we have a pilot system that we're brewing a barrel at a time, a couple kegs at a time on. We can do anything. We're going to the home. We're going to Farm Boy and picking up packages of yeast, and we can do whatever. But when it comes to the large system, we've got an English strain that we're working with. We've got a German ale strain that we're working with. We're making Hefeweizen. We've got a Weizenbock on right now, so we've got a Hefeweizen strain. But those 3 strains are the ones that we've been using most.
Yeah, don't forget the one we're doing this week.
Right. Yeah. So that's right.
Oh, Daisy Chain.
Yeah. So this week,
there you go.
Yeah. And this is the perfect plug or segue to plug this beer. We're a part of the Daisy Chain project this year, which has been going on for a few years now, organized by Sam Wright. But basically, it's a project where multiple Houston breweries are passing on yeast, which is a practice that was incredibly standard for for centuries. Breweries sharing or passing on yeast, so it's kind of like a brewery community building project. But basically, what's going to happen is Eureka Heights is going to brew some beer. They're going to have the yeast ready for us. We're going to go pick it up this week and brew a beer, repitching that yeast from them. That we're going to pass it on. And then so on and so forth. So basically, I don't even know, 10 or more Houston breweries?
11 and counting us.
11 breweries basically sharing the same yeast.
I think this is the third go-around, I believe, for the Daisy Chain. It's a cool concept, because I don't know of any other community. I mean, there might be somewhere, West Coast or some that they've done something like that.
I've never seen anything quite like this, and I think it's a really, really cool thing. So we're just like we've been doing with some of the other beers. We talked about the splits or the Berliner Weisses that were the same brew, split 3 ways, treated different ways. We've also got some Imperial Stouts that we're going to be releasing this weekend. That was the same thing. We brewed 8 barrels of Imperial Stout that was boiled for 4 hours. Really, really rich, condensed stout that we treated a couple different ways with coffee and coconut and vanilla and all sorts of fun things. This Daisy Chain brew that we're going to do this week, we're going to split that batch. We're going to do the Eureka Heights, the yeast from Eureka Heights for the Daisy Chain project. The other half we're going to pitch Kvike yeast, which is that fun new Nordic farmhouse sort of thing, which is a really, really fun new thing.
Everybody's crazy about the Quebec.
Yeah. It's the cool thing about it is it's something new. It has properties that are almost kind of like superior in a lot of ways to other yeast. It ferments really warm, doesn't produce any fusel alcohol or off flavors, which is really, really interesting. It also produces quite a lot of esters and little to no phenols. It's a very, very estery yeast, which goes well with IPAs. We're going to brew a double IPA this week.
Cool.
With
that back to the tropical.
Yeah.
As it warms up a little bit, it's got this smoothness that kind of, I don't know, just like it's a different thing now. That it's good.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll tell our patrons, I'm like, let that beer warm, not just the tropical, but other beers, like some of the dark ones. I'm like, let it warm up a little bit, and then it'll have a different flavor in a couple minutes from now.
It pays to be patient.
Yeah.
That's why why it's good to have a beer that you forget a little bit about, and then you come back to it, and then it kind of hits you again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
That's what we're shooting for here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know what else. I feel like there's so much possibility, so many new beers coming out, so much potential. I mean, you guys have just opened, and I'm super excited about everything you got going on.
Right.
So.
We have a lot of things that we're planning on and working on, a lot of different styles of beers that we're excited about, and just kind of working our way through all of the things that we want to brew. And then getting distro going too. But we're excited. We got a Doppelbock in the tank. We got that ESB. We got a new batch of Pils lagering. And then continuing to brew on the pilot system, kind of working on all the new things. We've got a Weizenbach on right now. We've got a Belgian triple that should be on next weekend. And then we're going to brew some more Grodzisky this week, which we're really excited about.
So the Grodzisky. Well, you know what? Tell you what. Let's wrap up this episode here.
Okay.
And do you have time for like 10 more minutes to talk a little bit about Grodzisky and some just a little exclusive for our Patreon subscribers? All right, we'll do that. We'll do a little bit of exclusive content. That's how you do that, Kennedy. You tease them. And then,
why are you looking at me?
Because I'm just saying it's building anticipation like a slow pour.
You're talking about teasing and stuff, and you're just making steady eye contact with me right now.
Are you uncomfortable?
It's weird, yeah.
Goal accomplished. All right, well, we'll wrap here, and come visit New Magnolia on Bevis Street,
1616 Bevis.
What hours as far as days of the week that you're open? Is it
so right now? Thursday through Sunday.
Okay.
Thursday 4 o'clock to 10. Friday 3 to 10. Saturday 11 to 10. Sunday noon to 8. As of March, we will add Wednesday nights. We're going to be opening up our brewery club starting March 1st. The cool part about the brewery club is 24 members at the top tier get to brew a pilot beer with John and Shawn's help, and then they get to serve it off our tap wall at a private event for them and their friends.
Yeah.
Not many breweries are doing anything that cool and sophisticated. Yeah. So people should come out and check that. We're about halfway there on subscription.
Okay.
But getting in those are the hours, and then we're getting into distribution.
Cool. All right. Well, I can't wait. This has been a really fun episode, and I can't wait to see what's going to develop down the line, because it's already gangbusters. So this is great.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
So guys, you're in town anyway. Come by New Magnolia and think about the old Magnolia while you're drinking New Magnolia, and maybe have that ESB and think about how it was back in the late 1800s, early 1900s in Houston with no AC, and then remember that we have AC. And fans and electricity and indoor plumbing. I don't know. When did they get? I guess did they have indoor plumbing then? Let's just pretend that they didn't. And there were dinosaurs and bears running around. It was awful, but now it's not. It's beautiful, and there's all this good beer. And if you don't want to forget about it, get one of the Berliner Weisse and just let it punch you in your taste buds and just take you to a magical place. So, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much,
Kennedy. Good job down there, buddy. Good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Stumbled across that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for John, Shawn, Shayn, Kennedy, I'm Josh. We're going to have a little exclusive content for our patrons, and if you want to listen to that, go subscribe But anyway, thanks for listening, and come visit our friends at New Magnolia. We'll see you next time. This is InterBrews.
This is InterBrews.
The preceding has been a presentation of Stewed Productions.